So when it comes to success, there really are two major keys that play into this. The first one is consistency, and the second one is focus. Consistency seems to be the piece that separates the leaders from the ones that are supporting the leaders' dreams. There's this saying that we can overestimate what we can do in a day, but underestimate what we can do in a year. And when I'm working with coaching clients, I find it interesting that they are so blown away that small, consistent action steps over time actually lead to great results. And in this episode, we're going to share some actionable tips on what you can do to stay consistent towards your goals. Hey, we're Britt and Chris Carmichael, and you're listening to the Elevated Life Podcast. Throughout the 16 years we've been together, we've never ceased in our endless quest to better ourselves.
We've studied top experts, philosophers, and gurus. After years of personal self-experimentation and working with thousands of clients, we've found the tools for shifting your beliefs, moving through fears, and developing a positive mindset that aligns with your authenticity, integrity, and soul purpose, regardless of your past.
If you're ready for a breakthrough, then you're in the right place, because we're here to empower you to take control of your life with simple mindset shifts that create radical transformation.
We'll be diving into topics like personal growth, health, philosophy, spirituality, relationships, success, and mindfulness. We don't shy away from the taboo topics like sex, hypnosis, meditation, and exploring altered states of consciousness.
So create some space for yourself and get comfy. It's time to become the badass you were born to be. So in January, I'm approaching my 15-year anniversary working behind the chair at my salon, OMG Hairstyles. And it's so interesting to see how much has happened and the accomplishments and the amount of highlights and haircuts and hearts touched working over the last 15 years. When I first started beauty school, I would have never imagined, like, this is where I would be today, voted best vegan salon of my town, and probably because we're the only one. No, I'm just kidding. It's interesting. 10 years ago, we went vegan in the salon and in our own personal life. And now every client that searches for me, I ask, how'd you hear about me? Oh, I was looking for a vegan salon. So I guess we were ahead of the game 10 years ago. But even so, making that small, consistent change just 10 years ago, making sure that all my products were vegan, that I made sure to advertise that way. That small change over time, 10 years later, now has led to a massive shift in the clientele that I see, the type of service that I offer, the products that I offer. And it all started with that one small idea. So it's just really cool to be approaching 15 years behind the chair and seeing how small, consistent action over time really does lead to massive results.
Yeah, when I look back at all the years of working the businesses that we have and what has made such a difference and why things have come as far as they have, is that, and I think this is one of the biggest pillars for consistency, and that would be belief. From the very beginning, there was a faith. There is a deep belief and a deep faith in the fact that whatever we were about to do, whatever journey we were going to embark on, if we put our heart behind it, if we really let that lead, and if we had the belief that it was going to be big, or that it was going to be something that worked, or that people loved, and that the clients would want to tell all their friends about it, when you start with that, because you remember, beliefs shape your entire life. It's however much faith you have in what is going on around you. We've all met that person who, no matter what is happening, it's negative. They could literally turn the brightest day into just rain and rain and rain. But you've also been around those kind of people that when you're around them, they light you up. They get you excited. They light that spark inside you, and you just feel like, oh my gosh, I'm capable suddenly. I suddenly have all this extra energy. And where that comes from is from that faith. It's going to be faith that keeps you trucking along. It's still that holding that vision in your mind. And when I talk about belief, I'm talking about what is it that you're picturing. When you think about something like a goal, what is it that you're going out into the future and picturing? That becomes your belief, and your mind tries as hard as it possibly can to conspire with you to make whatever visions you're holding on to happen in reality. And so that's why it's consistency, is because we weren't there in the beginning. We had no idea what we were doing. But we had the belief. We had, this is what I know I want to do. That's why clarity is one of those things that's so important. If you can't be clear on what you're doing, there's no way for you to be consistent. You're going to still be on step one trying to figure out the plan. And what you need to be doing instead is saying, what do I want to be feeling inside so I can really start to make this happen?
So that first pillar of consistency is belief. You have to believe it's even possible. You have to have clarity of a vision of the direction you want to go. And from there, that second pillar of consistency is the value that you're going to add. Once I had that vision of I traveled to all the different salons in Dallas, and I didn't like this about that, and I didn't like that we had to compartmentalize, or I didn't like that I couldn't have blue hair. There was all these things in all the salons I tried that I didn't like. So my vision, my belief was, I'm going to open my own salon and I'm going to provide the value, which is the second pillar of consistency. I'm going to provide consistent value at a high level, luxurious experience. Now, in the beginning, I was like 20 years old. So my level of luxury and was, the best that it could be. But over time, consistently adding that value to the experience has led me to be the luxurious vegan salon that I am today. And when you stay consistent in your efforts in serving and showing up and perfecting your craft, it gets better over time. So that consistency actually leads to exponential growth.
And, thinking about value and watching what you've done in the salon and other things too, it's you showing up on days where you didn't feel that great. You show up on days, maybe you're on your lady time. Maybe you've had
today.
maybe you've had a difficult week. Maybe something's been going on. But when people walk into that door, when they are sitting in front of you, when you have that moment that you can give someone else something or provide that value, you did. And you did it consistently every single time. And I think that's what really builds it. Because for a lot of people, for a lot of things to work out in our lives, we have to put on a little bit of a show. We have to set our emotions aside. This doesn't mean we neglect our emotions. You should be doing that self-care every single morning, every single night, during the times where you're not doing this kind of work. During the work, it's performance time. Like you put on that cape, you put on whatever it is that makes you show up, and you do it immediately, and you do it for them, and you do it every single time.
When I think about providing consistent value, it's like going to your favorite restaurant or buying your favorite brand. Those luxurious brands that stand the test of time that have been around 50, 100 years, it's because they keep providing that superior experience and that quality and value every single time. They never let you down. That hate to call you out, but Cava on El Dorado and Frisco, the consistency fucking blows. So we drive out of our way to go over to McKinney's to eat at Cava because we know that consistent value is always there.
So it's so important to be thinking about that. What are you going to do when you show up? What kind of mental space are you going to be in? Same way when you come home. Like if you work out and come home and see your family or your partner, how are you going to show up right then? Maybe you had a hard day. Are you going to bring it home with you? Are you going to dump it on that other person? Or are you going to be like, you know what? I can make this happen. We can have a great night tonight, and it's going to start with how I feel. The third pillar, which personally I think is one of the most important, and I think one of the most neglected. This is something that I will tell you 100% don't wish for. Do not wish for this lesson in life.
If you ask for it, you're
this is
gonna
Brit.
get it.
Brit made this mistake early on in our relationship, and I've been able to watch this thing go again and again. So please learn from us. Please don't do this. And that is patience. Patience, patience, patience. What that means is that you have not seen the goal yet. Patience is the way that we don't lose the faith. It is the way that we are able to march forward despite the fact of what we're currently seeing or experiencing with all our five senses. It's having that gut feeling of like, oh my gosh, what is going on right now? But it's having the faith that says, I can do it anyway. Despite the circumstances, we can make it happen. With enough time, effort, and insight, we can make amazing things. And so it's having the patience to stick with it. That's how you're going to be able to add the value, is that you're going to say, I'm just going to keep working it. I'm going to keep working it. Okay, today wasn't perfect. Okay, today I messed that up. Okay, today I made the wrong decision here. We've made a million wrong decisions in our businesses, in our lives, in our personal lives, in our professional lives. Millions, just tons. But that's the only way that you learn. That's the only way that you'll start to perfect it. I think perfectionism is a disease. I think what we should really be looking for is ways to improve. And so that's what you're looking for. If you are going to beat yourself up with how much time it takes you, you've already crushed yourself.
You've already
over.
lost.
Yeah, the moment's done. Your faith is down. It's okay. I'm going to make it happen.
There's no joy in the journey if you're constantly trying to live up to this perfectionism, especially if it's something big you're trying to achieve. So now that we've given you the 3 pillars of consistency, like what makes consistency matter, I want to give you 4 tips on how you can stay consistent, knowing what, once you have that belief, once you give yourself permission to have the grace and patience over time, knowing that your projects, for example, Shine School, Shine from the Inside Oracle, hell, you name it, it all took like 2 years to create because I was balancing my job in the salon, my job as a coach, my job as a wife, my duty to myself and my personal growth. And then after all that, I was able to block out and set aside time to be able to do that. And that 30 minutes a day over 2 years eventually led to the creation of those ideas. So that's going to be our first tip, is to set reminders and alarms. These reminders and alarms are there to help you to basically hold you accountable. Your phone can be like your personal coach. And every day when I got home, I had an alarm that went off and it said, work on your project. Passion project is what I titled it. So setting these alarms and reminders help you to stay consistent so that if your energy is waning, and now I'm not saying let's just like ignore our body's desires. When your body says rest, rest. But when you've rested 4 out of the 7 days, it's probably time to just push forward with a little effort and a little energy, because that can quickly turn into procrastination, which then quickly turns into self-sabotage.
And 2, if you're going to start looking at alarms and reminders, you really have to be diligent about it. So when that alarm goes off, that springs you into action.
It can't just be like a suggestion.
No, this is not something, well, I swiped it. Now I don't have to do that. I'll just continue to binge this show that I've been watching. Because what ends up happening is your dreams don't happen anymore. And you're like, well, what was the deal? It was you.
Or your sweet mate stops paying rent on time because she doesn't take that Thursday rent alarm serious.
Yeah, so you have to schedule this time. This time isn't going to happen. It's not going to magically show up. It won't be there. This is a time where you tell everybody, hey, I'm going to be away on this just for a little bit. And then when I come back here in 30 minutes or an hour or whatever it is, and maybe some nights BRIT can only do 10 minutes. That's all she possibly had to give. But she gave it. And so for those 10 minutes, hell, I'd hop in there when I knew she was down on in the dumps. I was like, hey, let's pull through together. I'll go in there. I'll help you out if there's anything I can do.
I'll sit with you if you just want me to sit in there.
Yeah, whatever it is, bring other energy in with you. Maybe it's music. Maybe it's a friend. Maybe you got an animal that lights you up. Like, bring them in there and let them be a part of those days that are lull days. Because there's going to be days where you're popping. And there's some days where BRIT, she'd be burning the midnight oil. I'd already be asleep. She'd come in there and want to tell me all these ideas. I'm like, what? But so the journey's not always going to be linear. It's not always going to be to do the same effort, and it's not going to be one big burst of effort. It won't happen that way. Like, life doesn't happen like that. It's going to be little bitty, slow, incremental movements that you're not going to be able to notice.
And that sucks for people who are all or nothing.
It sucks. This is why all or nothing is not a good way to go. If BRIT had been all or nothing, man, there's no way it had ever been accomplished. Nothing. I mean, do you remember when we first started doing the salon? Do you remember marketing? We'd pass out cards to people in the mall.
Which was a very ineffective method. People took offense to that because my first business card said life's too short to look like shit. So they didn't like that one.
We put flyers on cars. We walked around to apartments and
went to the movie theaters.
Everything. So we just tried a bunch of stuff. So you have to know that it's going to be a lot of that little effort. So we did that, and that didn't work. So we'd switch. We'd do something else for the time we were going to do. Okay, so that didn't work. Now we find something that did.
And for people who are like very practical, like, well, I did this, so I should get that. What is interesting looking back over my journey is that although we were putting a lot of consistent effort and action into the methods that we knew how to do, like knock on doors or pass out flyers or hand out business cards, the effort in which we applied to the goal never got lost. There was always an opportunity or something that came basically in match of the energy and effort that we always put into it. So I may not have gotten that client from talking to them at the mall, but because I spent that hour at the mall putting energy into attracting clients to me, I would then have someone call out of the blue and be like, hey, so-and-so recommended you. I'd love to book an appointment with you. Like, what? I didn't even have to try for that. So I don't want you to get caught up in thinking that your actions and efforts are going to be a direct reflection of like, well, I did it this way, so it has to come back this way. If you just put the effort and energy into your passion projects, the rewards come in unexpected ways.
That goes back to the faith again. It's the faith that it will work out. It's the faith that what you're doing is working in your favor. I'm so glad you didn't lose hope during those times. So a lot of times we're just like, I don't know how to build this damn business.
Oh, I remember one Christmas, our girlfriend Amber was over and we were sitting there and I pulled up the bank account for some reason and it was like $7. I'm like, it's Christmas. How are we going to pay our rent? I remember in full panic mode. But it was, I'm going to have faith. I'm going to call in more clients. I'm going to put in more effort and energy into actively pursuing getting clients in the chair. And I mean, even to this day, we've been able to always make it work.
You know what I think it is? I think a lot of times people get caught up in the excitement of goals. There's so much excitement about having a goal, but the reality is that there's a ton of hard work and grind to it. There's a lot of times that are not sexy.
It's like getting a puppy. You're like, oh, it's so fucking cute. Oh my God, 15 years
it
of pees.
It pees all the time.
Responsibility.
Yeah, so let's talk about the second thing here. And that is that you want to be breaking down your goals into smaller goals and celebrating all of your wins along the way. And the reason why you do that is because there's never just one goal. Right? It's always a bunch of them. So it's an overall feeling. We wanted to create a successful salon, but it's not just like, okay, if I come to, that's too vague. Like, what does that even mean? Is that just an amount of money? Is that amount of customers? That amount of publicity? Like, what does that mean? And so you have to start thinking smaller steps. And that is like, what's my website going to be like? You're asking, what is my communication like with my clients? Is it bringing in the kind of people that I want? What is my marketing doing for me? What does the interior of my space look like? Is that bringing the kind of people that I want? So it's all these other smaller goals that you're doing. And at the same time, you want to be celebrating the wins. And the way that we typically do that is we normally spend a day on it. And also, it makes it to my, this was a win list. So in business, you're going to find a ton of stuff that doesn't work, and you're going to find some things that really work for you. And so when you find that thing that really works, you're going to write that one down. That way, in case you ever go to teach whatever you're doing later in life, which once you find that yourself successful in something, start teaching other people. That's the way you really start refining it, because you get so many good ideas because people ask you questions that you've never thought of, and then suddenly your method changes by 5 or 10%, but that 5 or 10% can be really big. So it's always going through that. And always like when something goes right for us, I'm like, Britt, guess what we did today? Guess what we did on this webinar? Guess what we did in this salon today? Guess how this marketing worked? And I keep prompting her to like smile and to remember that moment so that we can continue to feed the energy going forward. I'm not going to be like, hey man, that client was really a pain in the ass. And so, what are we going to do now?
Celebrating the small wins is so important. It's so important that I made an entire lesson in a module in Shine School all about celebrating the small wins. Because when you're going after your life mission, your big desires, your big dreams and goals, it's going to take a series of small goals that you achieve and attain to be able to reach that high level goal. So when you celebrate the small wins, it helps you to keep that momentum. And when you break your goals down, like Chris talked about, into smaller actionable goals rather than, hey, I want a successful salon. Well, what does that really mean? There's like 10 steps there. I got to figure out the website, got to figure out the clients, how I'm going to communicate, all the things, right? Well, in the 1980s, George Doran presented this idea of SMART goals. And I'm going to share that with you today if you haven't heard of it. SMART is an acronym for S for specific, M, measurable, A, achievable, R, realistic, and T, timely. These are SMART goals so that you can create basically a blueprint or a framework template to work off of to ask yourself, is this even realistic? Do I have enough time to make this happen? When I was setting the goals for myself and creating Shine School or anything I've created, I always ask myself specifically that timely one. Do I actually have enough time to get it done in the manner that I say I'm going to do? And we put so much pressure on ourselves, just get it done right now, check it off, and then you've achieved something. But I just give myself I double the time. If I think it's going to take me 3 days, I give myself a week, because you might want to create flexibility and change within that time frame rather than putting the pressure on and feeling like you have to rush through it. You can actually sit, relax, and let all that information come to you.
The other thing that you'll also want to do while you're talking about the SMART goals or while you're doing those is to find a friend. Everybody needs a crazy friend. And what I mean by that is the kind of person who always sees a much larger, much bigger picture. Always, if you're going to run a mile in 7 minutes, they think you should be able to do it in 4. You need that friend, because
Are you talking about me?
SMART goals can be limiting sometimes, because when you think in terms of realism, what that means is, has someone else achieved it before? And if you want to do really great things in life, it's good to ride on the coattails of the giants. I love that. You can make it 85% of the way there just doing that. But if you want to make it that extra 15%, you're going to have to start thinking thoughts that no one else has ever thought of. That's what makes innovation happen. So having SMART goals is fantastic, but I also want you to consider what's beyond that. In other words, what seems unachievable, but you believe because of that faith that you can do it. You've got to have a friend on your team. If you're that person all the time, you're going to have a hard time, because a lot of the goals aren't going to be attainable and you're going to be frustrated. But the good news is that when you have someone like that, you can a lot of times feed off of that energy, like we're talking about, be able to feed off of that energy that they give you to think a little bit further out. And a lot of times you'll hit it. A lot of times you'll hit it just because you tried it. Because when we do the SMART goals, oftentimes what will end up happening is that we'll limit ourselves. And so you want to make sure that every once in a while you're doing the SMART, which is still great to do, you want to be doing something where you push yourself out of the way, when you take all the rational and logic stuff and throw it aside and say, but what can we really do? And that's where it sets it off.
But isn't that breaking down your biggest, wildest, craziest dream into something smaller and actionable so that it can be done? Because even if you're like, I have this crazy belief that this wild ass goal that isn't, quote, a SMART goal, you still have to break it down and take action. So is not creating the SMART actionable steps to achieve all the things that would get to that big goal. You can't just do it in one fell swoop. It has to be broken down. You have to achieve pieces and parts of it. So what do you really mean by that?
Right. But what if the goal that you originally set out for yourself is not the one that you really wanted? So you go, well,
then that's a problem of you not having clarity on what your actual goal is, and that's your problem and not the goal's problem.
That's why you bring your friend in who's crazy on the goals that says, no, you can do way better than that. That's small-minded thinking. You are such a capable person, you could do 10 times that if you really wanted to. Sometimes we don't always have that belief in ourselves.
I was going to say, then that's not the goals, that's the belief.
Absolutely, which all plays a part. All this stuff is interconnected. It's not just one thing. It's not just, well, if I just set the perfect goal, then something great will happen. That's not true. There's so many things that have to happen along that line. And a lot of times when we've spent a lot of effort, a lot of physical effort, a lot of mental effort thinking about it, talking about it, replaying it in our head, we get stuck in the same loop. Because a lot of times what our brain does, it just continuously gives the same thing over and over and over again. And so what I'm saying is that while you are on that goals path, you always want to have somebody that you can talk to. You have multiple people like this in your life that you can talk to that will go, let's try it from this other angle. Have you thought about this other angle? And suddenly the goal that you've been going after changes a little bit. It moves over 2 feet. And you realize that that's the one that you really want to be going for, because that's the one that's better suited for you and what your talents are.
I appreciate your perspective. I just don't think that has anything to do with it being a SMART goal versus the belief in like the steps that it takes to get there. So as I mentioned, the T in SMART goals is really one that I resonate with a lot, especially with so many balls in the air, lots of different hats that I'm wearing. So the third tip we have for you is to give yourself grace and adequate time to reach your goals. Do not put the pressure on yourself. Like, just enough pressure to make it happen, but not so much pressure that you explode or implode and burn out and give up.
There's a real fine line with this, and it takes succeeding and failing a bunch of times before you figure out how hard you can really push. Like, what are your buttons? When can you go full bore? When do you need to relax? That's all something that you figure out along the way. That's why we always like having multiple goals at once. It's not normally that we're aiming for just one thing. We're not just single dimensional. We are always moving in multiple directions and in multiple ways. And so we always want to give ourselves the ability to take a little longer, because oftentimes what you know about something at the beginning is not what you end up finding out along the way. Maybe it's a little bit harder than you thought. Maybe it's a little more challenging. Maybe you realize that you need to find another skill. I remember when I was in real estate, I loved the transaction of real estate. I loved the way the numbers worked. I loved the way, the whole thing worked. And then I realized that I really wasn't good at doing sales to people. And so my big goal of doing well in real estate came crashing down when I started door knocking for people and coming to find out that I wasn't good at just face-to-face communication yet. And so I had to go grab another skill. So my dream was going to take a little bit more time because I didn't realize that I was lacking. I only found that out along the way. And so it's really important to always give yourself that grace, because it is going to take sometimes leveling up certain skill sets and really making yourself into that person that can do the things that you want to do.
And the other thing you're going to have to level up, which leads us to our fourth tip, is your self-image. The way that you see yourself in your mind is how you're going to take action. It's the attitude that you bring to the situation. It's the competence and confidence that you exude because you believe in yourself. Going back to what the whole conversation of today really boils down to the belief that it's possible, or the belief in yourself that you are meant for this. And so many of the women that I coach ask that question, well, who am I to do this kind of work? Well, who are you not to if you were given that vision, that idea, that feeling, that inspiration? So up-leveling your self-image has to come into play when we talk about consistency, because like Chris mentioned, the person he was when he started the goal isn't the person he needed to become to complete that high level, like wild, crazy, expanded version dream of that goal.
It's interesting that you mentioned self-image and how important it is, because that is the trick that I did. That is what allowed me to talk to people face to face. It's because when I first started going up to doors and knocking on them, I started to play different scenarios in my head. And because I got the door shut on me so much in the beginning.
How many doors did you knock on?
Okay, so I got my first real estate deal. The first person that I ever went to their house ever and thought about doing real estate, I did the deal. So huge success first time. This reminds me of the first time we played slot machines.
Or fucking bingo, yeah.
We go and we win the first time. And so you think, oh, hell, this is easy. I'm thinking to myself, dude, I'm about to print money out of this. This real estate is a slam dunk. All the late night infomercials, they're right. This is a joke. And then I knocked on 2,000 doors before I got my next deal. It took me 2,000 no's. And I will tell you that despite the fact that it was definitely frustrating, because I wanted to make it, I'm like, what am I doing wrong now? It was the self-image that I had to change. It was seeing myself as the person coming up to their door, not as a like skeezy salesman, not as I'm going to make money. I had to start seeing myself as the person who was going to provide solutions. So that when I showed up at the door, I didn't show up, shake the hand, and be like, hey, I'm about to grab your house from underneath you. It's, hey, I know that you have a problem right now, and I can help you solve that problem. I have multiple different ways to do this, and if any of these interest you, I'd love to share some information. I can really, really make your situation much better for you. And when I came from that, I started nailing it. It started to become much easier. But I didn't see myself like that in the beginning. And because I got turned down so many times, I would show up to the door, and by the end of the day, because I would do about 100 doors a day. That was my normal day. I wake up, 100 doors, go knock on them. I was a pavement grinder. I want to get out there and do it. And so I put myself up in front of the beast over and over and over again. And it's really challenging. If you never had any kind of job or anything like that in direct sales where it's just you. I don't have a partner with me. I don't have a script that I'm going off of. I don't have anything. I'm just showing up and making it happen. It's different. And when you go home at night after that much frustration, I turn that into power because I want to figure it out. I'm like, I'm just doing the wrong thing. And so I started writing down, what am I going to say? I started to figure it out. If I say this sentence first, does this work? And so I started taking a methodical approach to it. I didn't know it was going to be like that. I thought I was just going to be the richest man in the world. I thought people were going to be like, hey, this dude need to write books and do seminars about real estate. And it wasn't that, but not for a while. Once I handled the self-image issue, once I got over it, that why is it me? Because I was young. I was super, super young. I left college to pursue this. And so I'm this young guy. I'm in front of people. I'm super new to this. I didn't go to any kind of classes. I didn't go to any kind of school. I read a couple books. That's it. And just had the heart to go do it. And so a lot of times when you're doing your goals, that was my motivation. My motivation was the faith that I thought it could work. And that faith was wrong in the beginning, just because I had the beginning success. But I used that faith to continuously push me forward. I didn't need necessarily the type of motivation where I'm so excited when I get up out of the bed. I just did it. I just woke up and did the work and made it happen. And it's one of those things that has to do so much with how you see yourself. When you close your eyes, when you think of your potential with something, when you think about yourself walking into a room with people with total strangers, and you're going to have to convince them to do something with their largest purchase or to do something in their life and make a difference, how are you seeing yourself in that? That's going to be the difference many, many times, whether you succeed or fail.
You know, when it comes to your self image, this is something that I have found time and time again that is basically the barometer of your self worth and your ability to receive abundance. So, when you have a big, lofty goal and your self image doesn't match that goal, then it's up to you to shift and do that work. And lucky for you, this is a masterclass we have already covered inside the Elevated Life Club. So, if you want right now, you can join the Elevated Life Club and access our past masterclass where we walk you through the mindset shifts, the meditations, the deep subconscious work to be able to up-level your self-image, which the feedback from that class was phenomenal. Oh, the other thing I was going to say is that you'll also get access to our upcoming live masterclass where we're teaching all on focus. And with it being the topic of consistency, it seems quite appropriate that we have all the tools to be able to break down the goals, stay consistent, stay focused, because next year I've got a lot of goals that I want to go after. And I know that for me, I love in just fucking chilling and hanging out and doing nothing. I could do that forever. But if I'm going to put these goals on my list of things to do, then focus to me is number one.
Yeah, when you think about it, the real currency right now, the really important thing that so many of us are deprived of, so many of us are lacking this kind of wealth, and that is attention. Most of us cannot focus on one thing for very long. We give a lot of excuses. We blame, we have ADD, we have ADHD, we have learning disabilities, we just weren't taught that way. And you watch people get frustrated very quickly with things. And that's not having that faith. That's not having that kind of patience. That's not having that belief that it's going to work out in the long term. And so what we have to do is we have to tune our mind a certain way. We have to get back into the present moment. We have to get back to our mindfulness practices. We have to get back to our meditation practice so that we can begin to focus, because everything always is happening in this present moment. The future is such a lie. That never happens, right? It's just present moment. Now it's the present moment again. Now it's the present moment again. And so the future is something that we are constantly making up. And so what we have to do is begin to single-minded use our attention and use it like a laser so that we can really dissect it. What do we need to do? Because if you're constantly distracted, well, what are you really getting done? If one little bitty thing can throw you off, a lot of times focus has to do with what our emotional maturity is.
So because we know it takes these type of mindset shifts and tools and techniques to be able to up-level, it's so interesting. As you were talking, I was thinking about, like, if this is always the present moment, then how are things, quote, changing in the future? Well, it's just you are showing up, acting, thinking, and feeling differently in this present moment that creates a different opportunity that we would say, well, now in the future it will be different. It's just a choice to make the change now.
Yeah, and it's interesting because what really ends up happening is that you typically go from feeling a negative way and deciding I've suffered with this negative feeling, whatever it is, anger, pain, jealousy, judgment, whatever, some sort of negative feeling. I'm so tired of this. I need to do something different. And so you find some sort of practice or some sort of tool or technique to be able to bring you better feelings. And then suddenly you feel better. And so you get closer to that present moment. And like you said, the future, whatever that may be, starts to look better. And what ends up happening after that is that you carry that way for a while, and then you find yourself feeling nothing. Not apathetic, not like you're not connected with the world, but you're not bound by your emotions anymore. It means that certain things don't just pull your attention this way or that. That's what I was talking about, emotional maturity. It's not letting anger or something like that immediately sway you. Maybe you feel it for a moment, maybe you feel it for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, but it's not a whole day. And so you stay in the present moment much longer because the future only exists in your thoughts. And so that anger, making you feel certain ways, making you think certain things and picture certain things in your mind, takes you to a different future. And so once you have good feelings, you stay in the present moment longer because you're not looking for an escape.
Well, speaking of anger, we've got a masterclass for that too, and we want to provide you those tools. So because you're an active listener here on the podcast, we've created a special offer only for you. If you go to the elevatedlifeclub.com/trial, you'll get access to the entire Elevated Life Club for only $7. This is a 14-day trial if you go to the elevatedlifeclub.com/trial. And this is our way of saying thank you for being such an amazing listener, for tagging, sharing us, posting it on social, telling your friends about it. It really means the world to us, and we want to be able to give you these practical tools to help you make those powerful changes in your life.
So think about what you want to do over this next year, and think about how important it's going to be for you to absolutely nail consistency and focus. If you come through this next year with those two things as your big guideposts, saying, I know what I'm going to do, I'm going to spend my time on it, and I'm going to do a little bit or a lot of it every single day, and I'm going to just continuously grind. When you come out of the next year, you are going to be, it's not even going to take a year. It's amazing. We think it's going to take so long, but it happens much faster. I guarantee you, whatever you think that you can do over the next year, you could do in 90 days if you really plugged it in.
I was going to say, just give us 90 days in the club and we can guarantee your life will change.
So we look forward to seeing what it is that you create, where you start to put your attention, and where things go for you.
Come slide into our DMs at the Elevated Life Club and let us know what your big goal is for 2023. This year, what was the word? What was the theme for the Elevated Life Club? You kept saying it every month. Like this year, we've got the program stepped up to be
bulletproof.
Bulletproof. What is it for 2023?
This is going to be the year of expansion.
Ooh.
Because what we focused on this year was really starting to create a personality and to create for you to have control over all of your faculties, the way that you think, the way that you feel, so that when you step into the expansiveness, you step into that as the full you. We can't start expanding. You can't scale a business until you have it down right. Mm-hmm. And so what we're doing is we are working on the foundation. We are working on what is happening inside of us, what is happening in the way that we feel, in the way that we take criticism, in the way that we believe in ourselves, in the way that we think. How are we have a handle on that? And then now that we do, now it's time to take it out into the world and really start to do some stuff.
Oh my gosh. So if you join us in the club, you have over 60 masterclasses to help you become bulletproof. And then once you join, you'll have access to every second Tuesday of the month where we do our live group coaching, where you can then step into your expansive self. This is going to be the most incredible upcoming year for all of us. And I can't wait to see what you create. Until then, we'll catch you next time.
Peace.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Elevated Life podcast. If you loved this episode, please share that love by leaving us a 5-star review and spreading the good vibes on social. You can tag us at the Elevated Life Club. Want more wisdom from us? Become an elevator by joining us inside our monthly membership club at theelevatedlifeclub.com to discover mindset upgrades, lifestyle hacks, and spiritual tools to elevate your soul.
Each month features a live group coaching masterclass, guided meditations, yoga practice, and more to help you transform your life one step at a time.
It has all the tools, coaching, and community you need to level up, progress every month, and keep going in every area of your life consistently over the long term.
Join us in the club and start your transformation today by signing up at theelevatedlifeclub.com.